Have you noticed how sometimes we insist on reaching something, the more distant everything seems to be? It's like trying to hold the water with your hands. No matter how close your fingers, it drips without license. And in this continuous effort, the question arises, am I failing? Do I need to try even more? But what if the question is not in effort, but in the direction? Jung, master in the art of understanding the human soul, invites us to look to another way, that of tune with what we really are. For him, what actually belongs to us does not require pressure because it comes naturally, as part of an invisible measure that connects you to what is essential to it. And it is precisely when you start to respect your inner truth that the right meetings happen, almost as if they are attracted to their essence. It is difficult to accept this when we grow up listening to what success comes only with extreme sacrifice, that everything needs to be conquered by force. The culture of competition teaches that if you stop, someone will pass ahead, that if you do not fight with all weapons, it will be left behind. But this constant battle mentality ends up moving us away from a more refined understanding, the compass of the spirit, the silence of internal answers, the invisible logic that rules the right time of each thing. Jung believed that our soul has its own direction, a call that goes beyond the ego's wills. What it attracts to itself is not what the world applauds, but what really contributes to our evolution. Therefore, so many times, what we want most does not happen. If you are following here, you have probably realized that what is really ours never comes by chance, right? And if this made sense to you, tell me, have you ever been through a moment when, even without understanding, did you have to trust things align in your time? If so, I would love to hear your story. And of course, if you believe this message can help someone who is going through a similar process, share this video. Oh, and before you go with the content, be sure to leave your like and subscribe to the channel. Thus you will be able to continue following reflections like this and be part of this journey with us. And tell me, where are you watching? Which city? I want to know a little more about you and your story, so share in the comments. Let's exploit this truth together and find out how the universe aligns for those who remain faithful to their own way. Because it's not the time yet. Because something within us needs to mature. Or maybe simply because it would not lead us to where our essence needs to be. This kind of perception transforms our relationship with life. We see the refusals, the breaks, the deviations with other eyes. We have learned to deal with time, expectation, and the false idea of control. By trusting this pace, not as an excuse for inertia, but as a deep gesture of conscious surrender, something reorganizes inside. Urgencies cease, the weight of the comparison dissolves. Instead, serene security grows, the certainty that yes, what is intended for you is approaching. And while this does not happen, there is room to mature, experiment, strengthen, to welcome what is already moving toward you, because the path does not fail. He just waits for the exact time to reveal himself. The notion that what is genuinely yours will find the way until you have nothing to do with passivity. It is not an empty wait, nor a magical desire. Jung's invitation is another. It is a call to presence, self-knowledge. For life to reach us with what is true, we need to be exactly where we should be, within ourselves. But this place of readiness has no external coordinates. He lives within you. When you disconnect from your own essence, it begins to pursue illusory images of happiness, empty relationships, achievements that do not feed your soul. And all this turns into a cycle of exhaustion that convinces you that the universe conspires against you. However, what is really happening is a clear sign of your own distance from what is true. Is that what really belongs to you can only reach you when you are being authentic. And that's exactly why, when you leave the papers that have been imposed on you, when you stop begging for crumbs of attention and to try to fit where you have never been called, something begins to change. Without major ads, no promises, just a lightness that is taking space. By valuing your essence, even without knowing where it can take you, you start walking in harmony with something bigger. Carl Jung called this individuation process the return to its deepest nature. That's when you stop repeating others' standards and listen to yourself honestly. And although this inner reunion seems silent, it transforms everything. The choices change, the connections become more true, and life, once so heavy, begins to flow. Coincidences become frequent. Right people appear at unlikely times. Situations that once seemed unreachable now unfold without effort. And this is not magic. It is coherence between what you feel and what you live. At this stage, despair gives way to confidence. Anxiety begins to disappear because you understand that the right time is not the time of the clock, but that of the soul. And it is precisely there, when the hurry disappears, that what is finally finds you. Not by insistence, not by force, but because you have become someone capable of sustaining what you only wanted. This serenity, which once seemed unattainable, now dwells you, and it is the greatest indication that what is true is closer than ever. However, an important question arises: is everything you want really yours? The answer requires depth. Often, what we want most comes from unresolved needs, uncoated trauma, the urgency to prove something to someone or to plug holes left by pain. And that's where we confuse absence with purpose. Jung believed that the soul keeps wisdom that the ego cannot understand. Therefore, so many dreams frustrate, not for lack of merit, but because at that moment we do not yet have an internal structure to live them without disintegrating. Life in this regard does not deny us anything. Just wait until our interior matures, until we stop accepting what hurts, even when it is disguised as a gift. When we accept honesty that some dreams are just illusions, such as heavenly painted walls, we begin to make room for something harder. This detachment process is where the true achievement begins. By releasing what does not belong to us, we create the opportunity for what is really ours to enter. It can be a new relationship, a job that finally makes sense, a change of environment, or even a rediscovery of what we already have, but we never knew how to value. And often what comes does not have the immediate brightness of what the ego wanted, but brings peace, harmony, and a perfect fit. There is an internal silence that we missed in what we already had. It is as if, for the first time, you stop swimming against the current and be taken by the right water. This does not mean that there will be no effort, but now there is presence, conscience, and the wisdom of knowing when to stop forcing, when to let go, and when to trust. And it is precisely this process that transforms everything. When you continue to knock on the do not open doors, you are telling the universe that you do not trust the time of things, that you do not believe that there is something better waiting for you. It is clinging to the little, what is superficial, the hurt. But when you let out with confidence and courage, you are saying, I deserve more. And this simple act of delivery transforms your frequency, your energy field, and life begins to respond otherwise. What is true and really yours begins to approach without haste, without fuss, without anxiety. What is genuine does not enter making noise. It comes in because it recognizes a home in you. And this home only arises when you cease to be who the world determined and begins to become who you were really born to be. There comes a time when we realize that it is no longer necessary to run after, not for pride or frustration, but for wisdom. We understand that everything that ran away from us has never really been ours. What remains, despite the difficulties, moments of doubt or silence, carries something worthy of being preserved. Carl Jung saw the human being as a symbolic field where nothing is by chance and everything has a meaning. When you insist on something that is clearly moving away from you, you are not just wasting energy, but disconnecting from your essence. What is really yours does not require persecution. It requires presence, understanding, and internal alignment. This change of perspective transforms the way we see the losses, the no, We stop seeing this as rejection and began to realize as redirect. And it is in this redirection that are the answers we are looking for so much. Sometimes what we thought was the center of our lives was just a deviation, a shortcut to learn to say no, to get to know each other more deeply, and to recognize our true limits and desires. Although it is difficult to realize this, while pain is still intense, over time and especially consciously, we begin to understand. What left did not reject us, freed us. What didn't happen was not a frustration, but a protection. When you begin to align with your true essence, everything that does not belong to this path simply disappears. This is not a punishment, but a process of clarity and transformation. Life begins to rearrange everything around it more clearly, and you realize that you no longer need to ask for love, attention, or recognition. What is yours, in fact, is not lost, and at the right time, comes to you. For this to happen, you need to break free from the versions of yourself that you built to please others. True love, your life, the fate that awaits you, do not connect with masks. They only approach when you decide to live true, without fear of showing your weaknesses. Because it is in authenticity you find yourself, and that's where the universe begins to find you too. Carl Jung believed that our soul attracts what we need to grow, and this is often the opposite of what our ego wants. So when things move away from you, don't see it like a punishment. Face it as a process of emptying, necessary for the space to be filled with what really matters. What is destined to be yours will come at the right time, but for that to happen, you need to meet before. Jung explained that fate is not fixed or imposed, but something that reveals itself when you break free from external expectations and begin to live according to your truth. What is yours will not approach until you live a life that is not yours, trying to adjust, please, and fit the molds of what others expect. What is genuine approaches when you allow yourself to be who you really are, when you begin to accept your imperfections and welcome your feelings instead of repressing them. This is where the universe begins to answer, not because it has changed, but because you have changed its way of being in it. And what once seemed distant and impossible begins to flow naturally, as if you had always expected your permission to enter. And this permission is the key to everything. When you decide to stop begging for attention, stop insisting on places where there is no reciprocity, stop decreasing yourself to fit in small spaces, you create a new field around you. A field where only what resonates with its truth come in. And this change has an almost magical power. You realize that you no longer need to run after, convince, or prove anything to anyone. The right connections happen by themselves, without effort. The opportunities that make sense appear without having to do anything. And all this happens not because you asked, but because you are aligned with your essence. Jung called this synchronicity, those moments that cannot be explained by reason, but have a deep meaning. When you start living from your true essence, the universe begins to send you signals that you did not notice before. Sometimes the most discreet signs end up being the ones that guide us the most, as if they were small, silent headlights, illuminating the way we should follow. So when something you wanted so much doesn't happen, don't despair. Do not blame yourself for people who have not stayed or for the opportunities that have not been realized. None of this is in vain. Each of these experiences was part of a process that perhaps you don't fully understand yet, but over time reveals the value of what really matters. Each absence brought the lesson to know how to value the presence. Each rejection, though painful, taught you about your own value. Every silence, instead of being just a break, was a chance to better hear your own inner voice. And it is in this continuous learning that the ground is being prepared for what is to come, for what is truly yours. When you stop hitting incessantly at the closing doors, others begin to open naturally. And these doors, different from the previous ones, are the ones you should cross. Not with fear, but with courage and confidence. because what really is to be yours does not require distress or excessive effort. It only requires sincerity, and when you are dedicated to your own truth, the universe begins to recognize this sincerity and to bring what is yours in a synchronous way. Of course, the big challenge comes at the moment the scenario seems stagnant. How to trust this process when everything around you seems still, when is the feeling that nothing is happening is overwhelming. Silence often seems to be just an empty, but it is actually an essential phase of revelation. Silence is when you begin to reconnect with your interior, what you really want, and more importantly, what you no longer want. The universe does not follow the rhythm of our clock, but the time of the maturation of the soul. And this maturing process often requires that you distance yourself from the superficial, to purify yourself from relationships and situations that no longer make sense. Jung talked about the need for an internal dive. He said that every process of transformation begins with a journey to the unconscious, where we face our shadows, cure wounds, and rescue parts of ourselves who were forgotten or neglected. This path, often lonely, is actually a preparation. During this silent period, life will test you. People and situations of the past can try to pull you back to what was familiar, but this is where the process of transformation really happens. The mind, with its old defense mechanisms, will try to convince you that change is not certain, that returning to the acquaintance is safer. And it is precisely at this point that the turn is happening. You need to support your truth, even when it has not yet manifested itself visibly in the outside world. Keep yourself true to yourself, even when the temptation to return to the comfort of the old irresistible opinion. This is the moment of deep faith, not a religious faith, but a faith in your spiritual and personal journey. Faith on your own journey is the foundation that supports all transformations. It is the fuel to continue, even when the path looks uncertain. It is the confidence that by firmly moving toward what really matters, the universe begins to align itself to its advantage. The first change that occurs is internal. You start to feel, without needing proof, that the right people begin to cross your way. Opportunities that once seemed distant or even impossible, they begin to emerge, almost as if they were waiting for the moment you were ready to receive them. And here is the great revelation. What comes to come is not just a response to your needs, but a self-knowledge tool. It is not about finding something that was missing, but about sharing the fullness you already are. What is approaching you now doesn't come to fill gaps, but to reflect who you have become. The connections that really transform are not those that come to save us, but those that show us the true extension of our growth. They are like mirrors that reflect our inner journey and at the same time tell us how much we have already evolved. It is no more than expecting something or someone to complete what is missing, but to offer the best of themselves with the certainty that what is genuine is naturally approaching. When you come to this point, life is no longer on expectations, what needs to be achieved, and becomes about a choice. You choose to be present, choose authenticity without the need to shape any standard or external requirement. And all this is only possible because you have crossed the process that brought you here. What is yours will come, but not because you struggled to search, but because you stayed firm in your truth. When you stop running and allow yourself to be, things happen as if they were already predestined. What really is yours cannot be diverted. He finds you when you align with yourself. And here comes Jung's wisdom. Destiny is not a line drawn abroad, but the natural expression of those you have become along the way. When what is yours finally manifests itself, there is no doubt. There is no need for confirmation. Internal peace arises, even though the world around it continues with its uncertainties. Something inside you knows the time has come, and it brings with it a deep silence, a tranquility that once seemed distant. Jung believed that the unconscious guides us to meetings that reveal to us our true essence. And when this meeting occurs, you not only recognize the other person, but yourself. Life then becomes a journey of genuine encounters, where there is no need for masks or defenses. You allow yourself to be who you really are, without artifice, without strategies to protect yourself, without fear of being rejected. This kind of deep encounter among souls who recognize themselves redefines what it means to love, achieve success, and live with purpose. The real encounter occurs when there is no more disguises, when you are completely in tune with what it is. And by understanding this, you realize that it is no longer a question of achieving what you want, but of attracting what resonates with the new state of consciousness you are in. Life is no longer a constant struggle to find answers and becomes a fluid dance with the unknown. You learn to rely more on the flow than in control, to see beauty in the process of transformation, and to understand that everything that resisted to arrive before was just waiting for the right time. The universe has its own way of aligning everything at the right time. When you stop running after what's no longer to be yours and you start walking with purpose, something deep happens. The right people, the opportunities that seem challenging, life changes, and even internal healing begin to emerge with a clear meaning. All this, which once seemed distant and unlikely, begins to unfold naturally, as if it had always been destined to happen. The key to this alignment is simple but powerful: consciousness. When you begin to walk clearly, with the understanding of who you really are and what you want for your life, life responds coherently. The doors that were once closed, both internal and external, begin to open. The opportunities that seemed out of reach approach. The connections you thought would never be part of your journey begin to emerge. The big mistake is in incessantly seeking something out of itself, trying to prove its value or hurry the process. Jung said that life is not about finding a meaning, but about living it. Living with meaning means aligning your actions, your thoughts and feelings with the truth of your being. And when this happens, life begins to reflect this truth. No more with effort or struggle, but with a serene calm that reveals what has always been waiting for you. When you stop trying to control everything, to force yourself to meet external expectations and begin to live authenticity, this is where the pieces of your path fit. The universe, after all, does not respond to what you say want. He responds to what you are. This is why the constant search, the effort to force situations or insist on closed doors, becomes exhausting. Deep down, you know that what is really yours requires no struggle, because what is true to you is already waiting for you. What it requires, yes, is your genuine presence, the integrity of being who you are, without masks, without defenses. It requires your heart to be ready to receive. Jung also reminded us that fate is not something that happens passively, but it is something we created, especially when we are in harmony with our unconscious. Each conscious choice, every gesture of care with yourself, every moment of listening to the internal signals shapes the path where destination will find you. This process of transformation, although it may be slow and sometimes painful, is essential. You are leaving behind who it was to become who really came to be. And in this emptiness between the old and the new is where the true miracle happens. The miracle of allowing itself to be found by what really resonates with its deepest and more authentic essence. When this moment comes, there is no sense of conquest anymore. It's as if you are meeting with yourself, as if everything you needed were already written, just hoping you remember. This reunion is not about effort or haste. It's about being ready, whole, available to live what is your right. Therefore, if right now you feel lost, impatient, or think your life is late, take a deep breath. Trust the process. Recalibrate your internal direction because, believe me, what is to be yours is not lost. Does not forget. Do not exhaust. He only expects you to be ready to receive it, with your heart open and the soul willing. And when this happens, there will be no more effort, only the deep silence that confirms, arrived. When you arrive, you know, because everything inside you says yes, And this does not come from your mind or from fear. He comes from his soul, and the soul is never mistaken. So what do you think of everything we say today? Have you ever had this feeling that when you finally align with your truth, things begin to happen naturally? It's been a time when you realized that what you were looking for so much arrived, not because you ran after, but because you allowed yourself to be who you really are. I would love to know how it resonated with you. Share your experience in the comments, because I believe that together we can learn much more about this process. And by the way, which city are you watching this video? I really want to know where you are, so we can connect even more. Oh, and if you felt that this video has brought something important to your journey, don't forget to leave that like, subscribe to the channel to continue this walk of self-knowledge and evolution with me. And of course, share this video with someone who also needs to hear this message. The more people allow themselves to be themselves, the more the world around us becomes. I'm always here to bring more content that can help you understand more about your own journey and achieve what is really yours. Don't miss the next videos. See you soon, and let's go together on this walk.